Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now we're taking a look here today, of course, at Matic. That's why you clicked on the link in the first place, because you are likely a Matic fan, and I have a lot of those. So thank you to my community members for asking that I cover this. So sorry I couldn't cover it any sooner. I've had a lot of things going on with my Signal group, Patreon account, personal life, etc. I'm trying to dedicate more time moving forward to you, my community. So thank you so much for your patience and your belief in me. And all those who are supporting me on Patreon. You're fantastic. Moving forward, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. Just note that I have years of trading experience, and my goal is to help you trade for a lifetime, not just for one day. Now, moving forward, we're going to take a look again at Matic here and making sure that we understand what's going on, just best practice, big picture, work our way down from the one-day chart to the 15-minute. If you are interested in taking maybe, I guess, a backseat or kind of just coasting, so to speak, and you want to find good entry points without doing all the work that I actually enjoy and love doing, I send out 2 to 4 signals per week through my Patreon account, and I actually provide you with trades that I'm taking day in and day out and teaching you best practice and help you understand why I take those trades in the first place, so that way you can make more better, well-informed decisions on your own eventually. So check that out in your own time. I've had some really good results so far. We're at about 75% success rate overall for my signals, but typically I trend around 80 to 85% in general. But we had a few hiccups recently with that crazy sub 30,000 Bitcoin recently. I think we all were kind of shocked by that. Regardless of that fact, thank you so much for joining me here today. Let's go ahead and take a look at the charts. Let's get to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at Matic. And just before we do, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first to get a quick baseline on the market so we know exactly what's going on, just so we can make a more well-informed decision, right? Because any good trader is going to take everything they need to know and invest in all the angles, right? You can't just jump in on a 15-minute chart and expect to be successful. And that's not why we're here. What we're here for is to obviously look at the big picture. So first things first, we look at TradingView desktop application, right? So tradingview.com, recommend utilizing that. I have the paid versions, much better just because you can have a lot more indicators present. Recommend that. There is a description in the below. Wait, link in the description below? Is that what we call it nowadays? The link in the description below for a discount referral, option where you get like a full month of, paid version to kind of see if you like it or not. So give that a chance, see if you do, because I can recommend you'll probably eventually learn that you cannot live without it. At least if you do this every single day like I do myself. Regardless, this is a 4-hour chart for Bitcoin. I recommend always utilizing the simple moving averages. So we're going to enable those here. The purple line here is the 200. The orange line is the 50. So those are basically the simple moving averages. I utilize the simple moving averages on the larger time frames. Makes a lot more sense because that's what the industry leaders are utilizing. Don't get me wrong, the EMA lines are beneficial as well in their own way, but I prefer SMA on larger time frames, EMA on shorter time frames. So looking at this simple moving average, the 50, it's currently working as a resistance, but also keep in mind that it should be temporary based on the fact that we do have a 9 on TD sequential that's soon to close here, which means we are probably going to see a reversal here in the sense of the fact that we have a bullish Harami hammer. We're almost going to close 2 hammers alternating. In other words, we had the 7 back here for the hammer and the 9 now as well. So long story short, we've got 9 hours of bearish momentum. That should come to an end soon. We should start to see a bullish increase and likely a ramp up towards 40,000 and then hopefully back on up to 42,500. I've got these little channels here, of course, drawn out for my signal group. And what this basically just means is that, we have a, the green side, the upside here is essentially plus 40,000, upwards of 42.5. And then the downside is 37 to 40,000. And that is essentially just the range in which we might see it happen. So if it does continue to retrace for some strange reason, we'll see 37,000 be tested. That's likely where it's at. I have I have an open trade right now with my signal group, of course, and these are my stops limits here, and I have it just below support because I feel like that's going to hold as a pretty strong support if it is tested again. Don't foresee that happening. I think we'll see a reversal soon. But long story short, here we've got 30,000 for a support level. 42,500 is a major resistance, and somewhere in between 40,000, 37,000, both as potential supports and resistances. Moving on to Ethereum. Taking a look here, I just drew this wedge pattern here recently. We do have an ascending wedge pattern forming, so I would recommend considering a long position on Ethereum soon, because most of the upward ascending patterns, essentially, they break upwards, right? It's more common than not to see that happen. I would say about 70% of the time you'll see an upward breakout. So I would expect that to happen soon. Just bear in mind also Ethereum has some really strong fundamentals that it's been working with recently, which is why we see this from Ethereum and this from Bitcoin, right? See, Bitcoin's trailing off and selling off, retracing because it came up too fast, too quick, whereas Ethereum, just constant, steady. This reminds me too, by the way, if you haven't seen this in my other videos, it reminds me a lot of this run here back from April after the first major Bitcoin sell-off, upwards of the May 12th until the Elon candle occurred. We had some pretty strong movement from Ethereum, and this is feeling a lot like that. Bottom line though is that we have a support level at 1725, another secondary support 2400, and a major resistance at 20. Well, I just drew this line here. Honestly, this isn't really a official resistance. Actually, kind of is. I mean, 2600, 2700 roughly is the resistance there, but don't count on that. I just kind of drew that based on the fact that it's kind of forming this pattern here. But more importantly, we have a major resistance at 2900. Okay, so there's something to note. All right, moving on to Matic. Let's take a look at the one-day chart first. Allocate our average true range and work our way down, because the average true range is very important in understanding, well, I mean, big picture, right? So if you look at Fibonacci retracement tools and things of that nature where there's kind of these average numbers, well, anytime you have a retracement, it's usually about 50%. So you can just split the difference and find that. That's what I use for average true range. In other words, if we look at all this price action before the major Bitcoin sell-offs, we can kind of identify that. So first things first, let's go back a little bit. April 17th, where are you? So April 17th is right here. It's hard to see, of course, but that's basically April 17th. That was the first major Bitcoin sell-off, right? So instead of ramping up on the 25th and just kind of doing a slight increase, which most other altcoins did, Matic ramped up pretty strong. And this was a what? Jeez. In 2 days, we saw over 125%. Okay, and then it goes sideways for a little bit longer. And then furthermore, after that, for 1 week, we get approximately a 200 to 250% increase. And bear in mind, this is all during the shenanigans with Elon Musk, Saturday Night Live, all that crap was in this time frame. So Matic has some really strong fundamentals that drove the price up significantly, and the only thing that drove the price down was the initial major sell-off from Bitcoin, which was the biggest one from everyone. That was like maybe a 20% decrease in Bitcoin alone in that one day, and that was the China candle. Okay, and as you can see, since then, it's actually fared fairly well. Most other altcoins were, down here consistently, and then it ramps back up, whereas Matic ramped up after that, and then it started to sell off, right? So that tells me there's some really strong fundamentals. These are things that are very important to understand. Obviously, do your own research, but Matic is a fundamental, I don't know, I wouldn't say masterpiece, but it's really good. There's some good stuff going on here, so research that in your own time. There's a reason why I'm holding on to my Matic on my side accounts, because of the fact that I think it's got strong potential and it will go somewhere. But regardless of that fact, that's not why we're here. We're not here to speculate, but the average true range for Matic would be somewhere in the range of, because again, it did very well up here, but that's overextended. We saw retracement, sideways action. I would say in general, hadn't the Elon candle, correction, the China candle occurred on the 19th, we'd probably see an average of $1.80 to upwards $2.50 right now for Matic, maybe even higher. Obviously, it's easy to say because that's retrospect, but generally speaking, that's kind of where we're at. So I'd say 180 is maybe just a baseline there. So why don't we just mark that approximately on our chart here and kind of go from there. So I would say that's kind of just a loose number there. Big picture, we want to mark this resistance too, so we'll just go ahead and say that we do have a resistance at approximately $1.63. So I'd say $1.63 is the next major milestone outside of some of the more recent resistance levels, which is maybe about 120. So I know it seems crazy I'm marking this a bunch here, but it's important to know that we do have some, we do have an uphill battle here for the most part. It's not like open season for Matic right now by any means, but it definitely helps. Price action is getting rejected at the 50. Keep that in mind too. We've had basically 4 days of reversal on the 50-day simple moving average in the last week alone. So rejected, retrace, try it again 3 days in a row. So until we can break and close above that on the one-day chart, it's still considered resistance. Good news is the 200 is slowly creeping up, and it's a major support. All right. Furthermore, we've got RSI up over 50, which is fantastic. And if you don't know this already, over 50 for over a week is a very, very good sign. That basically means that we have bullish momentum, bullish trending. Obviously, we see that a lot in most altcoins right now anyways, because of the fact that Bitcoin went from 29,000 to 40,000 in a week, 1 week or less. But generally speaking, that is essentially causing that to happen. And just so you know, the 50 works as a support or resistance level for the most part. So right now, with the price being over 50, that's a great sign. That means we have bullish momentum. And obviously, we have a convergence on the MACD and on the 22nd of June. Correction, July. So that's all normal. That's all well and good. That's normal stuff that happened to a lot of coins right now. So Matic isn't outperforming any other altcoins right now. It's kind of moving par for the course. Very similar to like Ethereum Classic, for example. I just reviewed that. It looks a lot like it. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's gonna be peaking up over the Ishimoku cloud soon. We'll take a look at that. Regardless, let's look at the 4-hour chart, see what's going on here. Love it. I like this a lot because we're up over the 50 and the 200-day simple moving average. That's really good news. We are trending, again, below this resistance of $1.20, but that is essentially pretty standard right now. I don't think we're going to see that tested right away, but fairly soon. If Bitcoin can break 42,500, I tell you what, Matic will likely take off and hit 120 if nothing else. See this? Look at this. This is what I was referring to on the 1-day chart, but it's even more present on the 4-hour chart. You see the price over the 50. Yes, it's staying under 70. We had a little bit of a retracement there, but generally speaking, this line is staying concurrent with the 50. It's basically every time it comes down to 50, it bounces off. It's a great, great sign. It basically just means we're going to continue to see the price likely ride the 50-day simple moving average upwards. We've also got a divergence here, of course. That's pretty standard on the 4-hour chart based on the fact that Bitcoin did sell off recently. Again, it's not impervious to Bitcoin. It responds very similar to Bitcoin, right? So just keep that in mind too. Even though it does very well outside of Bitcoin, it's still reliant on it too. You need to understand that most altcoins have that propensity to do what Bitcoin does, and then at random points it'll take off. They're usually these strong fundamental catalysts outside of Bitcoin or just outside of the market that you don't see that take off quickly. And Matic has a tendency of doing that because, again, there are some strong fundamentals here. Moving on to the 1-hour chart, I want to take a look quickly at the cloud, see where we're at here. We are below the cloud, but if we can break above, just say we can get to $1.07 and start breaking above that cloud, it'd be a really good position to consider a long position, essentially. Okay, but we got this nice momentum. We got this upwards angle. Hold on. Try not to reach for straws here, but yeah, you can kind of see that we are working into an ascending triangle pattern. So let's go ahead and take a look here. I mean, again, you can draw any kind of pattern you want and make it a reality, right? But generally speaking, when you do have an ascending type of pattern like this, which again, you could kind of tweak it a little bit, it is looking like it's kind of working towards a breakout. Okay, so it's ascending triangle pattern. Look it up. I would say 70% of the time it breaks upwards. Occasionally it'll break downwards, but at this point in time, with the RSI being up over 50 for the last week, we will likely see a breakout in upward fashion. So what I'm hoping for is Bitcoin to break 42,500, and then all these other altcoins, specifically Matic, Ethereum Classic, and there's a few other, what was it, Kava? No, Kava wasn't one of them. There's, eGold, I think it was, taken off right now. These are all going crazy right now because Bitcoin is doing some pretty good things. Even though it's sold off for a couple of days, yes, it's still very much doing well. And coins like these are starting to kind of get more market capitalization. Just something to consider. Let's take a quick look at the TD sequential. I don't think we're going to see much here, of course, just based on the simple fact that, yeah, we're in a state of consolidation. These numbers are all over the place. I won't even take the time to explain it, but generally speaking, TD sequential is a good indicator to look for as well on the 1-hour chart. I pretty much prioritize my 1-hour chart for Ichimoku Cloud and TD sequential. I don't use anything else on that chart. I mean, minus RSI and MACD, yes, but not really all that much. Moving on to the 15. This is my, usually my final stop. I don't even bother with the 1-minute chart unless I'm just trying to scalp, so to speak, which I don't do too often anymore. But generally speaking, we're looking at the 15-minute chart. We can see that there are some pretty obvious signs here. In other words, price is up over support, which is the VWAP, that's that blue line there. But it's a state of consolidation, so we really can't extract much here in regard to the EMA lines because there's no bullish or bearish momentum that's occurring. Neither of them have established dominance, so to speak. So honestly, the best way to approach Matic right now is with the larger time frames, unless you're again planning to scalp or do a very short-term day trade. Not a lot of my viewers are like that. They like swing trades, so I can tell you that if we look at the 4-hour charts and we identify the MACD, and we look at that, which I think we did, of course, earlier, we do have a divergence, so it's not generally like a great sign to buy right now. But that shouldn't be read into, because the fact that we do have an ascending wedge pattern forming, it may not break out right away, but I would say in the next 24 to 48 hours, we should likely see an increase from Matic in an upward fashion, just based on its history. Again, that's just the charts, but as you can see, the stark comparison from where it was at working bearishly and basically working as a resistance, the 50 again, 50 on the RSI. Previously, obviously, we saw a lot of downtime, but now with this increase, we see it above 50. So just pay attention to that. That tells us we are still trending above. So if we see this RSI break below 50, that might be an indication that we're going to possibly lose this ascending triangle pattern, and that it may not be a good consideration to take a long position. But I would just recommend setting a tight stop right in there, to ensure that if you lose RSI, we have the option of being able to, stop out and not lose too much. But I would plan on a long position here for Matic. I think it's likely that something's going to happen soon. These are my 2 cents, and I hope they benefit you well. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Oh, if you haven't already, feel free to reference my Telegram community. Good group of folks there, a lot of good people, and I'm sure half the people watching this in the first place are from there, because I send these messages there. But generally speaking, check that out in your own time. Feel free to support me on Patreon. I do share all of my trades through my Patreon members, so just keep that in mind too, because it's a really good way for me to be able to share my knowledge with you by explaining why I take the trades that I do. And I usually trade about 2 to 4 times per week, and I'm trending about 75 to 80% success rate overall since we started this about a month and a half ago. So all in all, pretty good. Can't complain there, but check that out in your own time, and if not, that's okay too. Thank you so much again for joining me here today. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.